there is no way that any of us, in any of the wisdom that is available, is going to change the way in which the world is moving. There is nothing going to change that. It is something to understand about the nature of the financial institutions that are the bedrock of the world that we live in, that these financial institutions are something that were built in a time and a background frequency of the cross of planning. Everything about the institutions that we have, everything about the way in which our lives operate has been supported by something that's disappearing. It's disappearing. The material plane since 1615 has been about cooperation and the bargain. It has been about cooperation and the bargain. And it is out of the way in which we have been organized through the cross of planning that the institutions, the educational institutions, the things that trained us, that developed our skills, that got us to work together in factories, that got us to work together in larger and larger and larger units to support larger and larger populations, all of this has been supported by a background frequency that is going away. And it's going to change the very nature of the way in which the material plane operates. Since 1615, as long as we have been in this round, everything about the material plane has been based on a bargain. And a bargain that inherently is a bargain between winners and losers. And it has been the way. And it is a bargain that once enforced, that bargain brings all of those who suffer the most at the material plane to be of service to those who have gained on the material plane. The reality is that when we look at the world around us, everything about the way in which we function, the very credit cards you have, the bills that you carry in your pocket, all of these are made possible not by our ingenuity, but by the background frequency that makes this possible. That it makes it possible that we trust each other in these odd arrangements that have been construed in this era. Everything about getting a job, everything about working is built on a long chain of rules, loyalty, agreements, and bargains. The bargains between those that employ, those that are employed. The bargains that exist between businesses and suppliers. All of the fundamental bargains that we assume are natural are not. See, something that Dream Rave shows us. Every night when you go to sleep, you descend into a five-centered vehicle, and you are reduced to an ancient persona, often a deeply savage one that has existed forever on a very lower plane. It is something to understand about us. We are never very far away from the mammal underneath. We are never far away from the beast. Human beings do not particularly get along well. They don't. They have to be trained from the earliest age to get along. They do. They have to be trained to get along in institutions in which there are people that they hate. You know, the bullies, the this, the that, all of the things that go along with it, they are trained. And if you don't follow the rules, then you are dealt with. You are punished. You are made to see the way. See, everything about what it is to exist on this plane is to understand that everything that we take for granted is not something that is based inherently on our capacity, but it's based on the way in which we are moved, and the way in which we are moved by a huge frame, a huge cycle. We have not always lived materially this way. All of these bargains, all of these relationships, I want you to think about how many bargains have to be kept to give people breakfast in Shanghai or New York City. I want you to think about how many agreements are built into that. How much trust has to be built into that. It is through every single layer that we do. We trust that the virtual thing that you do is actually taking money from you and putting money over there, and that somebody is actually going to do that. That you go to that little funny machine and you stick in a card and there's going to be something that's going to jump out at you. You take it all for granted. You do. In the same way that you take for granted the thousands of things that you deal with in your life that you have no idea how they work. You don't. We live in an age of incredible blind trust. How many of you could feed yourself? I mean, really. Have you ever thought about what happens when you wake up in the morning and there's no supermarket? We take it all for granted and we assume that it's not going to go away. We assume that all these inherent bargains are going to stay. We assume that the career that we're going to study for today is actually going to exist tomorrow. The world is changing. When this knowledge came into the world, it didn't come into a world that was going to be a world of trust. Not a world based on the cross of planning. A world that's changing. You see, all the knowledge that has come before is knowledge that brings human beings together socially. And brings them together in a way that they will cooperate with each other and not kill each other. All of this conditioning, all of this homogenizing. Human design isn't about us. It's about I. It's about me. It's about you. You see, there is no material direction for you other than what is absolutely correct for you. And it isn't about the way in which the homogenized world deals with material. Because the homogenized world says that, you got to have this or you have to have that because it all gets caught in that measurement. But you see, one of the most profound things to understand about being yourself is that you get precisely what you need. It isn't always what you think, but you get precisely what you need. See, my deepest concern is the concern for survival. That is, survival in a way in which we no longer have to put all of our time and all of our energy into trying to figure out how to work it out on the material plane. Because that's what we're doing. That's what humanity is doing. They're all desperately trying to figure out, how do I survive on this material plane? And all the things that they are willing to do for that. And at the bottom of it is fear. See, money and fear are really the same thing. The money game is all about fear. The fear of not having, that fear of wanting. Those fears that are so powerful that they totally distort the way in which you work.